Now on CBS News Colorado, voters decide the governor's race.
Thanks for being with us for this important debate in these closely watched midterm elections. I'm Sean Boyd, and joining me is Jesse Paul, political reporter for the Colorado Sun. Democratic Governor Jared Polis is running for re-election against Republican challenger and CU Regent Heidi Ganahl. Let's get right to opening statements. And Regent Ganahl, you won the coin toss and elected to go second. So, Governor Polis, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm Jared Polis. I'm running to be your governor to get things done. When I first ran for governor 4 years ago, we talked about making preschool and kindergarten free for every child in our state. We got it done. Full-day kindergarten, preschool starts next year. We talked about the goal of 100% renewable energy for our state, energy independence, saving consumers money by 2040. We now have locked in 80% by 2030. We're reducing taxes and fees for everyday Coloradans. We did the largest property tax cut in the history of our state for 2023 and 2024. We know that we have more work to do, but I'm a candidate who not only talks about things and getting it right, but has a track record of actually getting things done to improve the quality of life for every Coloradan. I love this state. Put simply, Colorado is the best state to live, to work, to raise a family, and to retire. And with your help, it would be the honor of my life to be able to serve for another 4 years to make our state an even more amazing place.
Thank you. Regent Ganahl?
Well, I'm honored to be here tonight. I love this state. I am so proud and excited to be a voice for all of Colorado and to be the first mom in the governor's mansion. I'm an entrepreneur, a CEO, and a survivor. I made it through a tough time when my first husband died in a plane crash when I was just 27. And I came back to build Camp Bow Wow, the country's largest pet care franchise, from scratch and saw it through the Great Recession. Now I want to fix Colorado. I'm proud of my record. I'm an outsider, a problem solver, not a politician. And what our record is says a lot about us. So that being said, we're going to talk about Jared's record in his first term. Number 1 in inflation in the entire country. Number 2 in fentanyl deaths. Third worst state for crime in the country. And 60% of our kids can't read or at grade level. Jared, that is quite a record. Now he wants a second term to fix the problems that he's created. I love Colorado, and I hope to be a voice for all of you.
Thank you, candidates. Now to the rules for the debate. You each will have 1 minute to answer questions and 30 seconds for follow-ups. Rebuttals will be at our discretion. We want to let our viewers know the candidates were not provided with questions ahead of time. Let's start with the top issue for voters, the economy. The latest numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show food prices here are up 12%, energy 7%, and we are the 5th most expensive state to buy a house. Governor Polis, the actions you've taken provide temporary relief, delaying the gas fee, for example, which you put in place, even advancing Tabor refunds and lowering property taxes. What do you do when that relief runs out and added costs like paid family leave, bag fees, the gas fee kick in just a few months? And you have 1 minute.
Look, one of the biggest challenges that the country faces is inflation. Supply chain issues, monetary policy. It's, of course, not just affecting the United States, but affecting much of the world as well. What can we do here in Colorado? We can have a governor that does what's right for Colorado, and that means acting to reduce fees and costs. Whether it's the biggest property tax cut in the history of our state, we delivered on making sure that nobody over 65 pays any state tax on your Social Security income. And yes, if I'm elected governor, one of my priorities will be making sure that we continue to keep property taxes low. We did a 2-year property tax cut for 2023 and 2024. Every homeowner, every business, we need to make sure we find a permanent way to constrain the growth of property taxes so people can afford to live in our state. We're going to lean into more affordable housing close to where jobs are. As we build out our state, we want to make sure that the dream of homeownership is achievable for every Colorado family. Our economy depends on it, and our quality of life depends on it.
Thank you, Governor. Regent Ganahl, your biggest economic proposal is to eliminate Colorado's income tax, and you plan to do that by using Tabor refunds and by enacting a state government hiring freeze. But what do you do in years when there's not a Tabor surplus, which could happen soon, given that we're facing down a recession? And would your hiring and freeze include the Colorado State Patrol and Colorado Department of Corrections, which are already pretty understaffed?
Well, inflation came out today at 16% since Joe Biden took office here in Colorado. We are number 1 in the country. That is not a good ranking to have. It's costing Coloradans an extra $1,000 a month to live and work and raise a family here, or almost $12,000 a year. So I have a very ambitious idea, but it's doable. The Independence Institute came out last week and said the numbers will work. We're going to take Colorado to zero income tax over 8 years. We're going to put more money back into the people of Colorado's pockets by changing the way we receive TABOR refunds so that they're income tax reductions, permanent ones. We're going to change fees back to taxes with voters' approval, which is what they are. They take more money out of your pocket. We're going to bring new business and industry here to Colorado. We're going to do a hiring freeze, not on state patrol. Public safety is my #1 priority, and the first dollar I will spend as governor is cleaning up the crime tsunami that has been put in place over the last 4 years and have the backs of law enforcement. We can do this. We'll go over 8 years. I'm excited to take us to zero income tax like many of the most successful states in the country.
Thank you. I will point out that the CPI in Colorado is about 8%. The number that you cite is from a Republican U.S. Senate. It's a partisan study that came out. Onto the Independence Institute that found your proposal feasible. They also, pointed out that there'd be huge political hurdles that you would have to cross, including, for instance, getting voters to sign off on converting fees into taxes. Voters have not approved taxes in Colorado maybe once or twice in the past 30 years. So how do you plan on convincing voters to convert these fees into taxes?
Well, I don't think the voters will be the problem. It'll be politicians like Jared Polis who want to keep the government large, want to keep more of our money. He's grown the size of government by almost 25% since he got into office. He's added 4,000 new full-time employees and 85 new taxes and fees. I would like to do what we can to reduce the size of government by about 10% a year in my first term, and also reduce taxes and fees, take us to zero income tax, and put more money back into the people's pockets of Colorado.
Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Polis, you say you want to replace income tax with a tax on pollution, a carbon tax. You also want the state to be all renewable by 2040. So if we have no pollution to tax, where does that money come from? And will you give us a timeline to make that change? 30 seconds, please.
So look, my opponent's intentions are great, and I agree. We should decrease, try to abolish the income tax in Colorado, at least reduce it. It's on the ballot this year, and I support that. But she's a math problem. Her tax plan would reduce the dedicated funding for the state patrol by 50%. It would gut our schools of funding, and it would force local property taxes and sales taxes up. That's not what we need. We need real relief for Colorado residents. I'm going to continue to work with Republicans and Democrats. We've delivered on 2 tax cuts to the income tax, one because of a TABOR refund mechanism that I support, the other one at the ballot box, and we have the chance to do that again this November.
Thank you, Governor. So, you say that Regent Ganal has a math problem. You have a bit of a pollution problem if all this pollution goes away by 2040 like you want it to. So how would you pay for Yeah.
Well, first of all, pollution going away is a great outcome. That's why I fundamentally say we should tax pollution rather than income. Income's a good thing. Encourage growth. Have companies put their money back into growing. Let people hold on to their hard-earned money. Tax pollution instead. And yes, you know, when you're talking about 10 years, 20 years, you have to figure out where the revenue is going to come from. What we think we can make progress on is cutting the income tax more and discouraging activities that pollute our air and detract from our quality of life in Colorado.
So you're talking about getting rid of the income tax over a period of 20, 30 years, right?
No, I think what is coming out of this discussion, Sean, is while we want to work on reducing the income tax at a revenue neutral, by the way, not making government bigger, not making government smaller. What matters is government is more efficient, that it does the right things, not bigger, not smaller, but the right government doing the right things, supporting our schools, supporting public safety. And yes, as pollution decreases in 10 or 20 years, you might need to look at other ways to offset the elimination or reduction of the income tax.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Ganal, property taxes are going up by double digits. The legislature slowed the increase for 2 years this year. But I wonder how you address high property taxes without hurting local governments that rely on funding in the future. 30 seconds, please.
Well, yes, I think inflation is key to this. We've got to do what we can to control inflation. And right now it's out of control in Colorado. It's becoming unaffordable to live here, to raise a family, to work, and run a business. And so what I'd like to do is reduce the size of government as far as property taxes and housing. We need to incentivize innovation and more options. There are some really neat things happening on the housing front that we can implement here in Colorado. And we've got to relieve small business owners of taxes and fees and regulations, as well as the people who are trying to just, live their lives here and pay for housing. It's just become unaffordable.
Thank you. Governor Polis, same question to you. Legislature slowed the increase for 2 years. How do you address high property taxes without hurting local governments in the future?
Yeah, first of all, nobody should ever be priced out of where they live just because there's been appreciation in their home. My opponent's plan would force local government to raise property taxes for both businesses and individuals. My plan is to build on the 2-year property tax rate reduction that we achieved to provide a permanent mechanism to help keep property taxes low. Colorado has the 48th lowest property taxes in the entire country. If I'm reelected as governor, we'll keep it that way.
Thank you. You know, one of my roles as a political reporter at CBS4 is to fact-check political ads. My reality check segments this year included ads that feature each of you. I'm going to play clips from those ads now, provide you with my analysis, and then give you 45 seconds to respond. We'll start with an ad by you, Governor Polis.
As governor, Jared Polis has reduced taxes and fees for
small businesses, homeowners,
drivers, farmers and ranchers,
on Social Security,
restaurants like mine,
bars like mine,
hikers,
and more.
So, Governor, most of the savings you cite are paid for by reducing tax refunds under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights and preventing or delaying tax increases, not reducing taxes and fees. In fact, the state budget has grown by 25% since you took office. So, knowing what you know now about the economy, are there fees that you regret enacting? And again, we have 45 seconds.
So it's important that people of Colorado know the state government grows at the rate of inflation plus population growth. That's the Tabor formula. That's the law. I did watch your analysis last night, Sean, and what it showed is that there were additional fee cuts and savings to Coloradans. Not the full $800 million, as you cited. Part of that was offset by use of the surplus dollars, but there was several $100 million in legitimate additional fee reductions, cost reductions, including largest property tax cut in Colorado history, including additional refund mechanisms like the 6-tier sales tax refund mechanism next year, which is under law, and the reduction in the income tax, and also making it $1 to start a business, something hopefully Heidi and I can agree on, encouraging entrepreneurship in the great state of Colorado rather than $75, $100. Let's save those small business owners money, reducing the cost of a park pass, and over 100 other ways that we passed to save people money.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for watching CBS4. Regent Ganal, a Democratic PAC has been airing an attack ad about you for several weeks now. I'd like to play a clip from that ad now and ask you about a specific claim that I gave a reality check.
What does Heidi Ganal mean when she says she is the MAGA candidate Colorado has been waiting for? It means she chose an election denier as her running mate.
So, Regent Ganal, you say you are not an election denier, but as I said in my reality check, you set yourself up for this claim by sidestepping the question initially in the primary, choosing a running mate who once was an election denier, and then by calling yourself a MAGA candidate. So why should Coloradans think that you don't embrace election conspiracy theories?
Well, Sean, Danny and I have said repeatedly over the last many months that Joe Biden is our president. We respect that he's our commander-in-chief. If you look around, it's skyrocketing inflation and out-of-control crime. He's destroying our country, and Jared Polis is doing the same to our state. So what voters want to hear about is how we're going to solve skyrocketing crime, out-of-control inflation, and get our kids back on track who are in crisis. We have one of the highest teen suicide rates in the country and one of the highest rates of drug addiction for kids in the country. Those are the topics that voters across Colorado want to talk about and want to hold Jared Polis accountable for doing this in his last 4 terms. He wants a second chance to fix the problems that he's created. I will do better. I will represent the people of Colorado and fix crime, fix out-of-control inflation, and stop our kids from being in a crisis.
Thank you. Now let's turn to water and its impact on our state. Colorado is going to have to reduce its water use. That's a reality. How much of the reduction should be borne by agriculture, which uses as much as 80% of the state's water? And you each have a minute. Regent Ganal?
Well, the problem with water, based on my conversations with 27 water leaders who are part of my water advisory committee, is storage. We keep studying and studying the problem, and there's very big storage projects that are hamstrung by the federal government. And a lot of the power under Jared Polis has been ceded to the federal government instead of making Colorado decisions here in Colorado. I have a huge respect for the farmers and ranchers across this state. They are feeling very neglected. They feel like they don't have a voice right now, that actually the governor has been punitive with them. And so I want to be a voice for the farmers, the ranchers, the producers of our ag industry, the second largest industry in Colorado, and make sure that they have the water they need, they have the rights that they need, and they aren't disrespected by a leader of our state.
Same question for Polis.
Governor Polis?
I will continue to be a fierce fighter for Colorado's water rights. And look, you can't store your way out of a drought. Of course, increased water storage plays a role, but we've also got to step up and make sure that we don't set one part of our state against another. Water pulls us together, our ag communities, our suburban communities, our urban communities, and we need to make sure that we're more water efficient in how we live and how we act in our state with a hotter, drier climate. Of course, Colorado is leading the way on acting boldly to prevent climate change, but the reality is increased fire risk, less water, and we need to plan accordingly and make sure we can continue to thrive in our state as one of the top ag production states in the entire country.
Just a quick yes or no before we move on from either of you. I don't think I heard a direct answer. Should agriculture have to cut some of its water use? Ms. Ganal and then Governor Polis.
Well, I think a lot of the farmers and ranchers are already doing that. They are very excited about some of the new technology and innovation in farming and ranching that's helping them conserve water.
Thank you.
And I agree. We've really worked on soil health initiatives and better crop rotation and new ways and technologies that are more water efficient throughout the Colorado Department of Agriculture.
Thank you. Governor Polis, this question is for you, still staying on the water topic. You said that Colorado needs to link its land use and water use policies together. Does that mean a state growth limit? And wouldn't that make the cost of housing increase even more in Colorado? You have 30 seconds.
I have 30 seconds. That's one we need an hour on, and we need to have a really long and detailed discussion on, because it's very important for the future of Colorado. But again, the short answer is, for too long, we've had a housing policy that's been detached from our traffic increases, from our water, from our air quality. We need to tie this together. We need more affordable housing to own and to rent close to where jobs are, so people have shorter commutes, less traffic on our roads, more water efficiency, and a better quality of life for Coloradans.
So, Regent Ganal, your water plan does prioritize storage, which you talked about, but doesn't conservation have an important role too? So how do you reduce Colorado's water usage while still allowing more development to address affordable housing? And you have 30 seconds.
Right, and absolutely. We can innovate. We can provide incentives for developers and farmers and ranchers to find creative new technology to do farming and ranching better and build houses more efficiently. But right now, a fourth of the cost of new housing in Colorado is regulatory. So again, the governor has grown the size of government by a tremendous amount, added lots of red tape, regulations, and fees. And if we can reduce that, relax that a little bit, and let local municipalities actually grow, I think we can solve this housing problem. We can put people in houses who are just really struggling right now to afford rent or a mortgage.
Thank you. Before we move on from this section, in 15 seconds, what is one original idea that hasn't been tried in Colorado to address affordable housing? Governor Polis, you're first.
We're leaning into modular and prefab homes, new technology rather than construction on site, high quality, costing 30–40% less. This is part of the overall solution, but it really shows how Colorado, a leader in innovation, will also help be one of the leaders in innovation that helps reduce the cost of housing.
Thank you. And Regent Ganal?
Well, again, here, Polis is the problem. He's added tremendous amounts of regulations, fees, and taxes and made it much more expensive to build housing here in Colorado. But an innovation that I like is co-housing, community housing, the ability to build communities where you have a common kitchen, you have a common living room, and then you have bedrooms where you can sleep.
Thank you.
If I can just have a follow-up on that, I want to ask my opponent if she can identify anything that the state has added to the cost of housing. I think we can both agree there's local government policies that add costs. We want to find a way around them. But what has the state done besides reduce property taxes and reduce the cost of housing?
Well, actually, Jared, I lived in Superior in Rock Creek for many years, and a lot of my friends lost their homes in the Marshall Fire, and they have not been able to rebuild because of your onerous Green New Deal policies. It's gone too far, too fast, almost doubled the cost to build a new house, and insurance is not covering that. And certainly the Boulder Community Foundation and some of the others that collected money, they're not seeing it. They're not able to rebuild their houses right now. It's terrible. And you had a chance to stop the use tax, and you didn't. So they're paying 3% more to buy the materials.
And those are all permitted through Boulder County. Again, there's nothing. The state has only done things to reduce the cost of new building construction.
The state use tax.
Cost, which we've eliminated the sales and use tax from tens of thousands of small businesses. If I'm reelected, we'd like to eliminate it.
We will get to wildfire
and we're going to get to that question a little bit later. You know, crime is also a major concern for voters. And Governor Polis, you have signed off on 3 major criminal justice bills that the legislature has then had to revise or rethink because they appear to have gotten it wrong on penalties. One made fentanyl possession a misdemeanor, another made auto thefts less than $2,000 a misdemeanor, and a third allowed felons like insurrectionists and drug dealers to possess firearms. Have Democrats been too overzealous, let's say, in their criminal justice reforms in recent years?
Well, look, we have neighboring states like Arizona with twice the fentanyl death rate of Colorado, where it's a felony. I signed a bill with harsher penalties for drug dealers. We're one of the first states in the country to have new felony penalties for pill presses, for people that are mixing this poison, fentanyl, with other substances that's being marketed to Coloradans. We have a plan to make Colorado one of the 10 safest states over the next 5 years. More and better policing, investing in law enforcement. We took the first steps towards better salaries and retention bonuses for police officers, tougher penalties for crimes, including for auto theft, and most importantly, crime prevention, because the best thing to do is prevent a crime before it occurs, which means better behavioral health support, better youth interventions, more success in making sure that there are less victims of crime in the future rather than more. And if I'm reelected, we'll make Colorado one of the 10 safest states.
Can you answer my question, though, on those bills? You know, have Democrats gone too far on some of these? Do you have any regrets?
So you know that I'm a data-driven person. I don't bring particularly any ideology. I believe there's good ideas on the left and the right. Show me what reduces crime, and we're going to work to get it done. So if there's ideas that need to be tweaked, that need to be improved, you can absolutely count on my support as governor to help make Colorado safer.
Thank you. Regent Ganal, you blame the rise on crime in Colorado in part on policies passed by Democrats in the legislature and signed into law by the governor in recent years, but you haven't provided many specifics on your ideas. In 1 minute, what are 3 specific changes you would make to state law to address crime?
Well, first, I would replace the parole board. I would replace the heads of Department of Corrections, Public Safety, and the Department of Justice. I would roll back decriminalizing fentanyl. Let's make felony a felony. It's a felony to have fentanyl. It's killing our kids. We are #2 in death rate across the country for fentanyl deaths right now in Colorado. It's out of control. The more time I spend with law enforcement, the more they talk about the frustration that Jared Polis created when he made us a sanctuary state. They can't coordinate with ICE agents to stop the flow on our southern border into our state. And now that it's not a felony, it's just been a terrible, terrible thing for them to deal with. We've also got to make sure that we have the backs of law enforcement. And like, opposed to what he said, he's not telling the truth about what I'm going to do with the budget. Public safety will be my #1 priority. I will make sure that law enforcement is fully funded, including the State Patrol, and they are able to do their job again. We have the 4th highest recidivism rate in the country. That means repeat offenders are doing most of the crime, which is one of the reasons we are #1 in auto theft in the entire country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor Polis, you talk a lot about jobs and behavioral health as tools to address crime. Does increasing criminal penalties, though, have any role, and if so, for which crimes? 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, look, this should not be a political, conservative, liberal discussion. It should be a data-driven discussion. I live in the real world. You show me that a penalty here increases safety and decreases crime, we're for it. If it makes us less safe, I'm against it. I think people know that when you're dealing with people that have an alcohol or drug problem, there needs to be a route to addiction recovery and substance treatment abuse. For some, a night in jail might scare them straight and help. For others, time in jail might connect them to criminals and make them part of a criminal network. So we want to do what reduces crime. Good ideas from conservatives, liberals, the left, the right. I have a brain trust of DAs and law enforcement that we talk with regularly, because it should really be the experts who advance ideas to help make us safer.
Regent Ganal, the State Patrol is funded with gas tax dollars, and you've promised to cut that gas tax in half. So how do you do that without cutting funding for State Patrol and still accomplishing your transportation plan, which we hope to get to later?
Yes, well, Jared Polis didn't submit the science to the EPA, which is a simple report that other governors have always done. And so now we're going to go to California standards next year because of his aggressive approach to the Green New Deal that he is partnering with Joe Biden on. So it's going to cost us 30 to 50 cents more a gallon for gas starting next year because he didn't want to submit the science. So let's start by just putting the science in and reducing the gas tax that he's putting into place by 30 to 50 cents.
Well, look, I mean, her answer to every question is Jared Polis, Jared Polis. I think what we need to do is deliver more funding for law enforcement, not cut the funding for the State Patrol in half. We increased the budget for the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, and we also are sending grants out to local police and sheriffs.
#1 in auto theft. #1 in auto theft in the country. #2 in fentanyl deaths under your watch.
Well, look,
crime
first
is
of all,
out of control in
again,
Colorado.
I live in a reality-based world. We're number 20. We're number 26 in fentanyl deaths. Look, we have the citation to show it.
That is not
West Virginia is #1. Our bordering states, Arizona, New Mexico, they're higher.
But
exactly. That's why you shouldn't be going around misleading people that we're the top. It's tragic enough. To anybody who lost his life, this is a tragedy. We need to provide more assistance to help make sure people can escape the vicious cycle of addiction.
We just can't understand you when you're talking over each other like that. I want to turn now to climate change and how it's affecting us and how to battle it. Colorado's Northern Front Range is currently in violation of EPA air pollution standards, and those standards are likely to get even tougher in coming years. What actions are you willing to take beyond those already codified in state law to address air quality and reduce some emissions? And we'll have 1 minute each for this, starting with you, Regent Ganal.
Well, thank you. We all want clean land, clean air, clean water. But we also need energy development here in Colorado. We produce some of the cleanest energy on the planet in Colorado. The oil and gas industry has been decimated under Jared Polis's strict regulations and his drive towards his Green New Deal, which is too far, too fast for Colorado. So why don't we produce energy here where we know we do it right instead of going to Venezuela or Saudi Arabia? It makes no sense. So let's start there. And then let's reduce congestion at some of the most critical points in our transportation on the roads, like 270 and I-25. My transportation plan does that because congestion is one of the worst offenders for the ozone. Those projects were canceled by Jared Polis and his team at CDOT.
Governor Polis?
Well, look, just like you can't store your way out of a drought, you can't drill your way to cleaner air and leading on climate. Oil and gas production has gone up over the last year because prices have gone up, and Colorado continues to be a competitive market for energy of all forms. But the truth is we need to continue our bold leadership on climate. We need to make sure that Colorado consumers are not beholden to international market forces with clean, low-cost energy. New solar energy costs 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Coal energy, 8 to 9 cents a kilowatt hour. We need a green dividend from replacing high-cost coal with low-cost solar and wind, and our plan is to retire every coal plant in the state by 2020, then to 2029, to make sure no one is forced to pay high-cost subsidies just to keep them open for another year.
And Jared, you don't have a plan to replace that energy. You're going too far, too fast again. We need natural gas to go into the future. It hurts the people with the least amount of money to pay extraordinary heating bills and higher gas prices. Those are the people you're hurting with your radical plan to take us too far, too fast. And we need to think about the single mom in downtown Denver who can't afford to buy an electric car.
And we do have a resource plan. It's been approved by the Public Utilities Commission. We'll be happy to send you a copy to show how Coloradans won't be forced to pay too much for utilities.
So 30 seconds here. If it's too far, too fast, then what is the right approach?
The right approach is to put our oil and gas workers back to work. We have the second largest natural gas reserve in the country right here in Colorado, and we produce it better than anybody else on the planet. We care about clean land, clean air, clean water. So let's produce it here, because I've heard from the folks that run the power plants and the folks on the ground in energy development that there is no plan to replace the energy. He follows Gavin Newsom most of the time in his policies, and we're seeing brownouts in Colorado. We're being told that people can't charge their cars. We're already seeing the future right here in California.
Thank you.
Governor Polis, oil and gas production is down in Colorado from 2019 levels when the legislature passed a sweeping regulatory bill. That's according to the Colorado Oil and Gas Association. You've criticized oil and gas companies in recent months over the lack of production in terms of the rising energy costs. And, you know, in addition to the gas prices, state regulators say our heating bills are going to go up by $130 per month on average this winter. How do you balance increasing oil and gas production with your push to make Colorado 100% renewable? And please answer in 30 seconds.
Well, you're correct that there's less production in 2019. There's more production than 2020 and 21, so I just want to point that out. The amount of production in Colorado really depends on the global price of oil and natural gas. There's about 2,000 permits that have already been granted that haven't been used. More of those are used when prices are high. Our goal is simple. I'll always do what's right for Colorado, and I will act to save people money. And yes, depending on natural gas is very costly to Coloradans. Look at what happened in the Texas storm 2 years ago. Because Coloradan utilities relied on natural gas, consumers across our state, Colorado Springs Utility, Xcel, were left holding the hook to the tune of hundreds of dollars each. We need to remove that liability that's hanging over the head of Colorado consumers.
Thank you, Governor. I have a follow-up question for you. The EPA is on track to force Colorado to sell reformulated gas in the Denver area to drive down pollution. The EPA says it will cost an additional 3 cents per gallon. You oppose that requirement, but is 3 cents too much for cleaner air? In 30 seconds here.
if it led to cleaner air. The problem is this is an outdated requirement from the Clean Air Act decades ago. We have much better ways to clean our air that don't increase the cost of a gallon of gas, which is the last thing we should do right now.
But Jared,
so we're
all you had to
investing
do
in
was
clean
submit
air.
the science.
We had a clean air package that invests in helping school districts convert to electric school buses so they have more money to pay teachers more and reduce class size. And we're going to tackle this challenge head on, and we look forward to taking on the federal government or working with them to avoid any surcharges that affect Colorado consumers.
Now, Governor Polis and Regent Ganal, we're going to give you a chance to ask each other a question. Regent Ganal, you want a coin toss to choose the order and elected to go second. So, Governor Polis, you get to ask the first question.
Look, running for governor is an audition of the kind of governor that you'll be. How can the people of Colorado be confident that you'll be a fact-based governor when you've promoted a pattern of conspiracy theories, whether it was Dennis Prager, who's anti-vaccine and giving him a platform, whether it's talking about litter boxes or cats in our schools,
That's not true.
or whether it's choosing a running mate who said that the last election was the big steal. How can the people of Colorado have confidence that you'll be a reality-based governor?
Because I'm a mom. I listen to the people of Colorado. I'm a small business owner. I'm actually on the ground. Jared, you know, I'm a mom. I know what a spoiled brat acts like, and you are a spoiled brat when it comes to people having issues in Colorado that want to talk to you about them on the ground, whether they're farmers or ranchers or moms or dads. There are a lot of parents that are really upset about the shutdowns. You shut down schools and sports and churches and kept pot shops open. I am a mom on a mission to make this state great again for our children, and I will do everything I can to make sure our kids can read again, to make sure our kids aren't committing suicide, that they are not in a mental health crisis, and they're not addicted to drugs. That is my mission as a governor. I care deeply about the children of Colorado, and I will always put them first as a priority, and I will always listen to parents' concerns.
Okay, Regent Ganal, your question for Governor Polis.
So, Jared, I want you to look in the camera, and I want you to apologize or say sorry to the many, many parents who have lost their children to fentanyl, like Mickey, who you didn't at the last debate. Her daughter Hannah died of fentanyl poisoning, and I've met hundreds of other parents who have lost their kids as well. And they say that you bear responsibility for decriminalizing fentanyl, making this a sanctuary state, and creating an environment where it's just it's a poison. It's a mass. It's just a mass problem. So I want you to apologize or say sorry to the parents and take responsibility for signing that bill.
Well, first, my heart goes out to Mickey. I've sat with many families who have lost family members to fentanyl and other drugs. And I wish that there was an easy solution. The solution's complicated. We work with Republicans and Democrats to add criminal penalties for fentanyl dealers, for pill presses, to get testing strips that can identify fentanyl in the field earlier, and of course, very importantly, to make sure that the resources are there for drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Like many Coloradans, I've had extended family members who've had issues with drug and alcohol. They got the help they needed, and they're better today. I want to make sure that every Coloradan has that opportunity, and we punish those who are selling poison in our streets and lock them in our prisons for a long time so they don't kill any additional people.
All right, we're going to move along here. We're coming up on the first year anniversary of the Marshall Fire, the most destructive wildfire in Colorado history. Recovery has been left almost entirely to local governments, and debris removal alone took 7 months. While the legislature passed a bill to help homeowners, none of that money, not a dime, has been dispersed because the rules are so restrictive. California has centralized disaster recovery at the state level. Is it time Colorado did the same? You'll each have a minute. Regent Ganal, you're first.
It's terrible what's happened to the victims of the Marshall fires. And again, they're some of my dearest friends. I lived in Rock Creek for many years, and they are just not able to rebuild right now. It's been so frustrating for them because of the heavy regulations, the lack of resources. They're not getting the help that they said they were going to give. Jared and the government said they were going to give. So a lot of them are having to move out. And it goes to a bigger issue of listening to the people of Colorado, being a governor for the people, making sure that when people are in crisis, as our kids are, or making sure that when small businesses are hurting, we don't shut them down, we don't take their freedoms away, we don't quarantine them, we don't keep kids out of school. It's just a matter of listening to the people of Colorado, and I believe governors should be the lead listener. We should be out in the field, spending time with parents, spending time with farmers and ranchers, and really understanding the problems that we're facing. And I've had a chance to do that over the last, 6 years as a regent, statewide elected, and again on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Governor Polis, same question to you. Should we have that statewide, centralized disaster recovery center?
The short answer to your question, Sean, is yes. The state needs to step up with the increased frequency and severity of weather-related events, fire, floods. We need to establish, and we're working to do this, a resiliency office that can provide on-the-ground assistance immediately. Up our bar on fire response. We've added a state Firehawk helicopter, additional lease capacities, new technology coming online, investing in fire risk mitigation. That means taking down trees and fuel around communities and around homes, and making sure that we coordinate the response better for the new reality that Coloradans face with the increased risk.
Thank you.
Insurance companies are abandoning California homeowners due to expensive wildfires there, and many homeowners worry that Colorado could be next. Should we have a state insurance fund, an insurer of last resort, for those who can't get insurance? You'll have 30 seconds for this answer, and Governor Polis, you're first.
Not sold on that yet. We need to look at it. The key issue is reducing risk. Insurance is a cost-plus model. They look at risk, they add their margin. We need to reduce risk. And there's proven technologies to do that, whether it's simply in taking down trees and brush around your home, construction materials, especially in the wild and urban interface near open areas. And if we do this successfully, we'll be able to drive down insurance rates for every Coloradan.
Thank you. Regent Goodall.
And again, Polis is the problem here. He talks and talks and studies and studies. I just want to act. I'm a problem solver. I want to fix the problems that our state is facing. A fourth of the trees that are standing right now are dead and need to be cleared out on the fire front. But in regards to people who are hurting right now, small businesses, parents, we need to take care of them. No matter what it takes, we need to listen to them, hear what their issues are, and have compassion and figure out how to solve their problems. And right now, Colorado is in a bad place, especially when they're paying $12,000 more a year to live.
Thank you. Regent Goodall, can I follow up, though? Do you believe that Colorado should move toward having a state insurance fund to provide that backstop for homeowners?
I'll look at it. If it helps people heal and get back on track and helps people that don't have other resources, then yes, that's absolutely an option, but I would need to look into it a bit more.
Thank you.
Okay. Rocky Mountain Insurance Information Association estimates the Marshall Fire will cost at least $2 billion. What role should the state play in making sure homeowners insurance remains affordable? Should insurers have to get approval for rate increases like they do for health insurance? And we'll have 30 seconds on this. Regent Goodall.
Well, I don't think getting the government involved in forcing, restrictions or mandates is the right solution. I think what we've got to do is make sure that people have access to resources from communities and charities and churches. And we can do this in another way. We can use the free market. I never believe mandating or restricting or putting onerous requirements on situations like that is the best way to do it. So I think the best option is to, A, make it affordable to live here again by reducing inflation, and B, giving people resources that they need to rebuild.
Thank you. Governor Polis.
Well, if I'm elected, I'll work to hold insurers accountable. Look, you need to make sure that whatever goes on behind that screen has full disclosure, make sure that they're not taking money away from your premiums to pay for other priorities in other states. Absolutely, like any business, we need to make sure we hold insurers accountable to keep rates low and engage with the insurance companies to reduce risk, which saves homeowners money and also reduces rates and saves the insurance market for the state.
So are you in favor of the state getting involved in this then and setting rates, approving rates like they do for health insurance?
Look, the state's role is to provide a voice for people of the state, for consumers, to hold insurance companies accountable for the service that they provide. That's the consumer watchdog role. As governor, I'll always do what's right for Colorado, and that means making sure that insurance companies don't overcharge you.
Thank you. Now on to abortion. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Governor Polis, this question's for you first. Abortion rights groups plan to put a measure on the 2024 ballot in Colorado rescinding Colorado's constitutional ban on using state dollars to fund abortions. Do you support that concept? And what can you do right now to help abortion care providers deal with the influx in patients as abortion bans are enacted in neighboring states? You have 1 minute.
You know, look, it's simple. I'm for more freedom and lower taxes. The right to choose when and if you have kids is a very important right for people. If it's for any particular initiative that comes forward, Like anybody, I'd want to read it and understand what it does before I say I support it or I oppose it. But look, the general direction, empowering people to make the right choices and acting to reduce unwanted pregnancies and reduce women who ever even face this really difficult decision by making sure we have access to birth control, reproductive health, and education to reduce unwanted pregnancies.
Thank you. Governor Polis, so broadly on this question, would you support removing the constitutional ban in Colorado on using state funds for abortions?
Well, look, I can say on this issue, when I was in the United States Congress, I did vote against the Hyde Amendment, which was a similar effort nationally. But before I would say anything on any policy, just as my opponent wanted to see this particular policy around insurance of last resort, the words matter and the details matter. So I'd be open to it, but I want to make sure it didn't have any unintended consequences.
Thank you. Regent Ganal, you've said you're pro-life with exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. You've also said you'd rip up Colorado's new law guaranteeing abortion access, which you've also called disgusting. But you've also said that voters should decide Colorado's policy on this issue. They've decided 6 times since 2008 not to restrict abortion. But if a bill came to your desk limiting abortion access in Colorado, would you sign it? You have a minute.
Well, my journey to having my kids has been a bumpy one. I've had several miscarriages and lots of ups and downs, and I have so much compassion for women who are facing this difficult decision. But as a governor, I want to bring common sense back to Colorado, and I believe abortion should be rare and safe. But I also believe common sense doesn't come into play when we're saying we're going to abort a baby in the final weeks of pregnancy or even on its birth date. That's not who we are in Colorado. I just can't imagine that that extreme or radical of a policy that Jared Polis signed into law without the will of the voters is the right path for Colorado. So I was ripping it up because I don't believe abortion in the final weeks of pregnancy is who we are in Colorado. I think we can take a different path forward, but I don't want to divide on this issue. I want to bring us together. So I've made a pledge that I will not make any substantive changes to the abortion law without pushing it back to the people of Colorado for a vote.
Thank you. So just to be clear, if the legislature sends you a bill limiting abortion access, you would veto it?
I would put it back to the people of Colorado as a vote, yes.
Right. Let's focus on education now. Colorado has a growing STEM sector with most of its workers coming from out of state because we don't have enough of them. One of the primary drivers is our K-12 system. Colorado math scores have been flat for over a decade, and fewer than 1/3 of students are reaching grade level. Regent Ganal, what can you do as governor to change that? And you have 1 minute.
Well, I've been on the front lines of education reform for many years. I've helped open several charter schools. I've helped create more incentives for teacher pay and improving teacher pay, whether in my role as a regent at CU or in my work in K through 12. Right now, the average classroom in Colorado gets about $250,000 in funding, and only $50,000 of that goes to teachers. We need to pay teachers better. We need to take money and put it back into the classroom and away from the increasing number of administrators. I believe in higher education we have the same issue. The administrative bloat is out of control. So anything we can do to reduce the cost of tuition, but also put more money back into the classroom and give parents choice. It's time to give parents choice by letting the funding follow the family so that parents, if they're not getting the education that their kids deserve, can have other options. I think it's time to provide choice and transparency and competition, but support our public schools and teachers. We've got to pay our teachers better as well.
Thank you. Governor Polis, your plan.
Look, my opponent's plan is a fine plan if she's running for school board, but the governor should not control our schools. We should trust families, we should trust parents, we should trust communities. And the truth is, of course, there's great things going on in public education across our state. One of the most important determinants of how well kids succeed is early childhood education. That's why didn't just talk about preschool and kindergarten, got it done for every child in the state. We're investing in our schools with an increase of about $12,000 for a class of 25 kids, going to better teacher pay, smaller class size. While my opponent is talking about litter boxes and kids dressing up as cats, we're talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic, and making schools that no matter where they are in our state, our schools are accountable for making sure that every child gets a great education, is prepared for success.
But Jared, they're not getting a good education. 95% of African American and Hispanic kids in Denver public schools cannot read at grade level. 60% of our kids in Colorado cannot read at grade level. That's ridiculous. We've got to do everything we can to just stop throwing more money at it and make sure it's actually working. Let's give teachers more pay. Give them more of the ability to teach the kids and get them the tutoring they need if they need it. That's the most important thing we can do.
Your tax plan would cut investment in education by over 40%.
That is not true.
It's simple math. It's simple math.
I know it's a good talking point,
it's not a Republican or liberal thing. It would cut 40% out of the state budget, devastating teacher salaries and increasing class size for every kid in the state.
Jared, you said you rely on the data. That is not accurate, and you know it. It's a political talking point.
I'm just reading your own plan.
Governor Polis, your math
true.
Scores in particular, I ask you about, bringing up math scores in particular, your plan to bring up math scores?
Oh, bring up math scores in particular.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, early childhood education is one of the most important determinants of how well kids succeed, not just in school, but there's been a number of long-term studies that show 20, 30 years. Lower crime, higher job pay, better participation in higher education. So giving kids a strong start, number one. Not just everybody who can afford it, but everybody should be able to go to preschool and kindergarten. Second, use the data to drive the progress. There's proven math curriculum and math ways of delivering math technology that we need to get out and support the kind of innovation, particularly in districts that need to turn around to do better.
Thank you. A state law passed in 2019 requires teaching about American minorities in civil government, and yet in the proposed standards currently before the State Board of Education, many educators have pointed out that most mentions of minority groups have been replaced with generic language and references to equity, gender identity, race, and racism have also been stripped from the standards. If the board adopts the current language, will it be violating the spirit of the law you signed, Governor Polis? You have 1 minute.
Well, look, this is a great question. I hope you're having a debate with the State Board of Education candidates. What I would want to make sure, and by the way, the state has standards in our state. Curriculum, the actual curriculum is up to school districts, parents, families, but the standards, we support just like a Colorado for all, an America for all. We want to tell and lift up all of the great stories of women, of minorities, of people who came from Europe, everyone who helped make our state and our country the greatest place on earth and what it is today. And that's a story that our kids need to know.
Well, and parents should be able to have a say in the curriculum, and you did not support a bill for transparency in curriculum for parents in this last session. Why on earth would you not want parents to see what's being taught in the classroom? I don't understand that, because that's really important to most of the parents that I'm talking to. And if we're going to get better at teaching our kids how to read, write, and do math, parents need to be part of the solution. We've got to include them, not exclude them, and keep them out of the conversation. I don't understand why you wouldn't want transparency in curriculum for parents so that they can see and feel comfortable and support changes in curriculum.
Look, in our state, parents and communities control the schools through our elected school boards. I support that. I don't support a gubernatorial takeover of our schools like my opponent is articulating. I think these discussions are best had with the teachers, the principal, and your local school board, because we live in a state that has local control of our schools, and I support that.
So you don't support parents having transparency in curriculum? You don't want them to see what's being taught?
I support more transparency, and we have that in Colorado.
Then why didn't you support that bill?
Well, first of all, I think I would have. I did.
You did not support the bill.
It was fine. It never reached me, Heidi. I mean, it was a fine bill. I support any direction towards more transparency, because parents deserve to know what their kids are being taught.
We're going to move on to transportation now. Governor Polis, Colorado is spending millions to improve its transit systems, but the state's roads remain in a state of disrepair. CDOT's 10-year transportation plan includes just 2 highway widening projects, I-25 North and I-70 at Floyd Hill. Why not fix the state's roads before focusing so much time and money on public transit? After all, buses will have to travel those same roads. We're running out of time, so we're going to keep this to 30 seconds.
Well, look, Colorado infrastructure, our roads, is going to get better because we have a national bipartisan infrastructure package and a state bipartisan infrastructure package, $5 billion over 10 years. You look at the Highway 70 underpass project, that was $1.2 billion. So you'd be stripping money away from suburbs and from rural Colorado. We've paved over 600 miles of rural roads. To invest in 1 or 2 marquee projects, we want to align our limited investment that we have with the ability to invest to maximum reductions in traffic. We look at the data, we make the hard decisions, we save you time and money.
Thank you. Regent Goodall, your transportation plan hinges on voters converting fees into taxes, but voters have turned down 2 transportation funding ballot measures in 2018. Given the economy now, why would they say yes, and what's Plan B if they don't say yes?
Because voters are sick and tired of politicians like Jared Polis saying they're going to fix the roads and not do it. So my proposal takes it back to the people of Colorado and make sure that all the dollars go to specific projects that will actually fix the roads, that make a difference, make it easier to live, work, and raise a family in Colorado. It's the same fees and taxes that Jared Polis already put through, which was a boondoggle, a $5 billion tax increase, when only a third of the money goes to fixing the roads. In fact, they just slashed the budget to do rural pavement projects. That is not okay. That's not how we're going to move forward and fix our darn roads finally.
And in 15 seconds, as we're running out of time here, please answer the question, what would you do if voters don't approve converting those fees into taxes?
I believe they will once they know the truth about how these taxes and fees were slid through without clarity and understanding of what that money was going to be used for. It's not to fix the roads.
Okay, now we're going to ask you a set of questions that we'd like you to answer in 15 seconds or less.
All right, so both of you have said you would release your tax returns if your opponent does so. If we set a date and time, we're looking at Monday at noon. We'll provide a virtual link.
For you.
Will you commit to simultaneously sharing your 2021 tax returns? Governor Polis, you're first.
Look, I've released several years of tax returns. There's been others that have reported on. I'll be happy to discuss with my opponent what additional releases are necessary.
Regent Goodall?
We don't have to discuss it. I'm happy to.
All right, there we go. Monday, noon, we'll provide the link.
I'll be there.
So if you're governor in January, would you push to have the legislature refund use taxes? You brought this up, Regent Goodall, on wildfire rebuilds, not just the Marshall Fire, but all wildfires going forward. Regent Goodall?
Absolutely.
Governor Polis?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Supported it last time.
Why didn't you do it right now? Like, you could have done it for the Marshall
again,
fire victims.
maybe you should run for state senate or state house. We could use more allies over there.
Jared,
on issues
you
like this.
you could have pushed to have that use
Okay.
tax relieved on the Marshall fire victims, and you didn't.
I supported it.
You did not.
Absolutely. We need you in
You
the state
did not.
legislature.
All right, I
Heidi.
have other questions here. How will you be voting on Proposition 122, which would decriminalize the possession and use of so-called magic mushrooms? Governor Polis?
Like most Colorado voters, I'll be reading the Blue Book and making our decision, discussing it around our kitchen table. I haven't looked at that
Haven't
yet.
decided it yet. Regent Goodall?
So we have one of the top addiction rates for kids in the country right now. And I know Jared Polis is very tight with the pot industry, and it's legal. I respect the voters of Colorado, but we've got to do everything we can to protect our kids right now. And I don't believe legalizing more drugs is the right path for our children.
Okay. Would you rename Mount Evans? And if so, what? Regent Goodall?
I haven't thought much about that. I'd have to study it.
Governor Polis?
I haven't either. I think that's being looked at, and obviously you want to make sure there's a lot of local buy-in in anything you do, but I haven't looked at that yet.
Now, a specific question for each of you. Regent Goodall, would you use state resources, as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did, to transport migrants from the U.S.-Mexico border to predominantly Democratic cities or states?
Well, I appreciate the attention it brought to the border crisis at the southern border of our country, but also the southern border of Colorado, because Jared Polis created or made us a sanctuary state after saying we would not be one in his debate with Walker, which has allowed fentanyl to flow across our border from the southern border of the United States. So I would have to understand specifically why they did that or what the intent was, but we've got to create attention on what's the problem, and that's fentanyl flowing across our border.
Okay, Governor Polis, you lowered the sentence of the truck driver who crashed into traffic on I-70, causing a fiery crash that killed 4 people, cutting it from 110 years down to 10. Did Kim Kardashian call you to ask for that leniency?
Well, this was a simple decision. 110 years was bizarre, unusual. Completely outrageous. Millions of people agreed. But more importantly, we just looked at the data and said, look, this kind of crime, normally there's a 5-10-year sentence. We made sure we reduced it.
But did she call you?
Did she call you? Or did
she
you call
publicly
her?
issued tweets, and she but again, look, I'm a governor who does what's right for Colorado, not what's right for Kim Kardashian.
All right. We've got to get to closing statements. Governor Polis, you lost the coin toss for openings and have elected to go second. So Regent Goodall, 1 minute.
Thank you. So Colorado, Polis's policies are destroying our economy here. 16% inflation. It's costing you $1,000 more a month to live here. Jared's policies are killing our kids, whether it's fentanyl, the sanctuary state status, the rampant crime we're seeing across Colorado. We're #1 in auto theft, #1 in bank robberies, #1 in cocaine use. This has all happened under his watch. Him and his D.C. buddies have also handed over the southern border of our country to the Mexican cartels, which is making fentanyl one of our top issues here in Colorado. I've been talking to parents all across this state that have lost their children to fentanyl poisoning. That has to stop. We need a law and order governor. We need someone who will revive the economy and reduce taxes, fees, and regulations. We need someone who will put our kids first, because right now our kids are in crisis. I am a mom on a mission. I care so much about this state. I will do everything I can to roll up my sleeves and heal Colorado from this terrible situation we're in.
And with the final word, Governor Polis, 1 minute.
The people of Colorado know I'm a reality-based candidate with reality-based solutions. I know that inflation is 8.2% here, not whatever my opponent says. I know that Colorado doesn't border another country like Mexico. I know where we are on a map. I have a vision for moving Colorado forward, for saving people money, for cutting and reducing fees and taxes, and working together to make Colorado one of the 10 safest states. If this was easy, it would have been done already. If I have the opportunity to be the governor of the greatest state in the country, I look forward to working with Republicans and Democrats to get it done, always using data as my North Star, learning from what works and what doesn't work in other states and across the world to make sure that we bring the very best quality of life to Colorado to make our state an even more amazing place for our family, for our kids, and for our future.
All right, thank you both for being with us. Governor Polis, Regent Ganal, thank you for joining us. This is an important part of educating our communities as voters receive ballots next week. Jesse, thanks for joining me. Good night, everybody.